Hey everyone, this is Tom Singer. Before we get started with today's episode, I want to inform you about a special offer that I have to join a brand new group called My Sales Call. If you work for a small business or if you're a solopreneur, having some people to talk about ideas and best practices and to have a focus and accountability around sales is so important. It's so easy to get caught up in the busy work that we don't do what we need to do to drive the sales in our business. So I have started a weekly call where people can get together and share ideas around sales and then make a commitment to the group of what they're going to accomplish for the next week. It's just like if you work for a big company, your sales manager would have a weekly sales call. This is your sales call. Go to mysalescall.com to find out more and sign up today.
Welcome to the Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do podcast with your host, Tom Singer. In each episode, we explore the interesting lives of business leaders, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and others who have a healthy dose of the entrepreneurial spirit. It is time to explore something cool. Now, here is your host, Tom Singer.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. Thanks a lot for pulling your chair up to my virtual Cool Kids table. You know, I didn't get to sit at the Cool Kids table in high school. I was on the outside looking in, so I just started my own. I started this podcast so I could have access to really smart people who were doing cool things in their businesses. And I've learned the one thing, and it's always true, and that is success leaves clues. So when you get the chance to get around successful people who are doing something interesting, they can't help it. They have to give you an idea, a theory, a little nugget, a concept that you can then pick up and run with in your own business. And now we are over 550 episodes strong, 5.5 years of cool things entrepreneurs do. And every single show, I'm able to find somebody who is super cool, who has a heart, who wants to share with you and with me. And today is going to be one of those days. Today, I am with Jessica Thiefels. And Jessica, she is a person I found very interesting. I met her a few weeks ago. I always say this podcast is like I'm sitting in a bar having a glass of wine with a friend. And 2 weeks ago, I met her, and that's how we met. We were sitting in a bar with a group of people having a glass of wine. And I found her not only to be smart, but like delightful, but also she seemed to have some really good ideas. So I said, hey, Jessica, come on the show. And as I always talk about, the people who say yes without thinking about it are my favorite. She's like, of course I'll come share. Because you see, she runs a content marketing company, and content marketing is so important if you're in business. It's the lifeblood sort of how I get found by a lot of people. You know, people are looking for someone to do something on a topic I speak about. They find me through Google or however else they find me. I end up going in and speaking or training at their company. So I'm a big fan of content marketing. So she does that. But she also did something very interesting. She traveled the world last year for 8 months while continuously running her business. Imagine if you could just get on a plane and go for 8 months while you're running your business. And at the same time, she wrote a book. She did all of that because she's in very, very much in her soul, her mindset. She is intention-based. And I think that helps all of us. So I said, let's talk about all this. Jessica, welcome to the show.
Hey, that was quite an intro. Thank you so much.
For some reason, I get that a lot. People always send me emails going, that was the best introduction. And I don't know. I just get to sit down with cool people and I want to share how cool they are.
I love it. Well, I'm happy to share my coolness and my probably not seemingly as cool ideas, but valuable nonetheless.
Valuable for sure. So I don't read like the bios that everybody sends me. Everybody's got like a PR person, some content marketing expert who sends like the bio I'm supposed to read. I don't do that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and your company?
Totally. So I've been in content marketing my whole career, which at this point is been about 8 or 9 years. But I've done it for lots of different companies, all different sizes, all different things. So my focus now in my business is on organic content marketing. So anything that's not paid that falls under the umbrella of content marketing. So social media marketing, email marketing, community building, content creation, content strategy. If it has anything to do with words or community building, I do it. And I probably do it pretty well because I've done it for a long time. So that's my business. And I love teaching people about it because it's something that a lot of people don't understand how to do.
Sure. So what led you to doing your own business? You said you've been doing it your whole career. You're not really that old. Did you start off working for companies and then go out on your own, or have you just been doing this on your own the whole time?
Yes. I like to say I had 6 jobs in 7 years. So exactly. And to go on, honestly, I ended up going out on my own because it sort of happened gradually. I started taking on freelance work, and then I had to get basically moved down to part-time for this amazing startup I was working for. There were only 12 of us. We were like family, and the lead investor no longer wanted to invest in the company. So the founders, who were actually younger than me at the time, had to let pretty much everyone go. But they wanted to keep me on part-time because I was managing the blog, which was driving like 500 leads to one of our tools a month, and it was working really well. But when that happened, I sort of had this feeling. I got another job like 3 days later, and I was like, what a blessing. And I went to the new job and I couldn't do it. It was like you'd been broken up with and you're not ready for another relationship. And I was like, I just can't be at this new company. So very magically, long story short, someone reached out to me, and it was a remote position, content marketing, and I'd be able to manage my schedule and my time. And so that sort of dropped me into self-employed world. And that's where I started bringing on clients, and it all just sort of built naturally to a place where I could take it to my own business.
So now that you've been doing it for a while, what do you love about working for yourself versus working for like that company with the bosses?
Oh, I don't like listening to people. I have a problem with taking direction.
That's a pretty common answer around here.
And I just love the freedom. I mean, to be able to have traveled the world for 8 months while continuing to still make the same amount of money and grow my business was pretty much the most incredible example of the benefit of running your own business.
So let's talk about that. That's a big part of your story. So you're not back that long. Let's talk about your 8 months. And by the way, aren't you glad you got back before the whole Corona crisis? So you weren't like sequestered somewhere?
We left April 15th last year, and we got back the first week of December. So it was like right around this time when we left. My husband, who we traveled together, that's the thing we keep saying the most. But I mean, it was incredible. It was life-changing. The biggest thing it taught me, especially in terms of business, is there's so much more time in the day than you allow yourself to believe. Like, I don't have to wake up. I don't have a schedule. I can choose whatever I want to do, whatever I want to do it. Yeah, I would still wake up at 7:30 in the morning, and I would still work and not allow myself any breaks, or not allow myself to enjoy the freedom of working from home. And traveling taught me I could work. At the end, I was working maybe 10 hours a week and still running my business fully. So it taught me that I can really step back. I don't have to be in it all the time. I built it to that place, so that's incredible. And that's now being home, allowed me to explore a lot of other areas, which has been great.
So what were some of the places you went?
Oh my gosh, everywhere. It was basically, what's the word? Transcontinental or I don't know. Literally went around the world. We started in Australia. Spent a month in Bali, a month in Thailand, a month in Vietnam, a week in Singapore, a month in Croatia. That was the peak, without a doubt, no questions asked. And then we did Italy, Switzerland, France, Spain, Morocco, and Tunisia.
So first of all, wow, that's a lot to do a month in each of those first places. I mean, that's a long stretch of an 8-month trip to have 3 places that each got their own month.
Yeah.
But I like extended places in a single spot because you get to be like the locals rather than the tourist. I spent like 8 days in Venice, and most people don't like Venice. And the reason they don't like Venice is they go in the summer, so it's hot and stinky. It's overcrowded in the summer, so there's lines for everything. You can't get into anything, and Venice is extravagantly expensive. And we did go in the summer, and there were lines for everything, but most people do Venice in like a day and a half because they're sandwiching it in between, Milan and Rome, and they're just trying to cram it in because they want to hit Florence and they want to hit Siena and they want to hit Pisa. So they cram it in for like a day. So they're trying to see everything in a day, and they just hate it. We were there for 7 days, and yes, it was hot, and yeah, Venice smells a little bit in the summer, and I couldn't do anything about the crowds or the expensiveness. However, we could go whenever we want. There's not that much to do in Venice. So instead of cramming it all into a day, every day we picked a thing. Oh, tomorrow we'll do the Guggenheim. And we'd take the boat to the Guggenheim after lunch. And then we just were like locals, and we'd eat only in restaurants that were not tourist restaurants.
Yes, that's so key. Yeah, I mean, especially because we were working, we wanted to maintain some semblance of routine. So, I mean, everywhere we were, we found the one health food store. Every city's got one health food store that we've discovered. At least every place we've been, there's one place where you can find good organic food or products, and we'd always go to the gym. So we've been to like 20 plus gyms around the world. And so, yeah, exactly. It was like you were living the life of more of a local. You're working, going to the gym, not going out every night. I mean, you can't live on a vacation for 8 months. Like, it's just not realistic. So we were like, this is life, not vacay.
What does your husband do that he was able to do this?
He is in product marketing and design.
Does he work for himself, or did he have a company that allowed him to work remotely?
He has a great story. He quit his job to do this, and then they kept him on for, I think it was like 10 hours a week remote.
Oh, nice.
So he was able, and now he 100% works for himself, which he was always scared to have both of us be by ourselves, not having like a steady paycheck. But he's doing insane. I mean, he's making not that it's about money, but he's making so much more money than he did when he was working for another company, and so much more freedom, and he loves the work. And
good.
Yeah.
Good. So what's the biggest lesson that you came away with besides, I have more time than I thought I did? What's the other biggest business lesson you came away with?
It's a good question. One of the things for some reason was don't be afraid to get on the phone. Seems really odd, but I was always so bad. I would just like send people over my pricing and just like, if they were interested, they were interested. If not, they weren't. But I found that if I could get them on the phone, that I would be more likely to bring them in. And so now I'm on phone calls all the time, not like wasteful phone calls, but I'm not like afraid of it. And I think I did that more while we were traveling because I don't know why, but I did. So
it is interesting because like I'll get an inquiry email and I'll call back. Usually if I'm not like working, if I'm not on stage or doing something, I'll call right back. And I can't believe how many meeting planners, honest to God, say to me, "Oh my God, you called me back." Or if they happen to call me, I answered the phone. And they're like, so many speakers have like these layers of people I have to go through. I have to fill out a form on their website. And they go, "We got you." And I'm like, I can't believe that, people do that. And I've talked to some peers who do that and they think it makes them sound fancier. And maybe I don't charge as much as they do. And maybe I don't work the same type of events. Maybe I'm not as fancy, but I'd rather have a whole business where I get to talk on the phone to my clients.
Yeah, exactly. It makes such a difference. And especially because everyone has a website, but when you can really I know that if I can get in front of someone, they're a lot more likely to want to work with me because my personality comes through. Yeah. So
and you do have a great personality. I want to work with you, and I don't even know what you do for me, but that's okay. So what advice do you have then for somebody who's listening to this going, wait a minute, here's this young woman, because you're young, who has been successful, who was able to go travel for 8 months with her husband all around the world and still make as much, if not more money than she did before. I want that life. What would you suggest?
My first response is you can have it. I'm not special. I'm only special in that I decided I wanted something and I started moving toward it with intention. And that's why sort of the intention things comes up, and that umbrella is everything that I do, because when I work with marketing clients, I'm teaching them how to bring intention to their content, to their social media, how to not just post for the sake of posting, to actually get something out of it. And when it comes to living this life or being an entrepreneur, just decide that you want it and go toward it. I feel like people get scared about woo-woo stuff, but I firmly believe if you start moving in the direction that you want to go, things will begin presenting themselves. And
well, and I'm really big on intention, and I'm not very woo-woo either. And it doesn't always work. It's not like I just, envision the phone will ring and I'll be on a stage a month later. Right. But I think that, having that intention is really important. So one of the things we talked about when I met you, and one of the things we talked about right before we started recording, was how you are so intention-based. Let's go a little deeper about what that means, because for a lot of people, they go, "Oh yeah, I've heard that," but so what? It's like when people talk about, like personal energy and stuff like that. It's I interviewed someone the other day, and it's like, well, we need to explain what that means because nobody knows. So when you're intention-based, what is that?
It means that you're making choices every day to get where you want to go, even if that choice is to just write up an email or research a question that you don't know. It's moving with intention. You are not just, here's an example. Let's say you have a big presentation tomorrow and it's really important and you might get a promotion from that presentation. And you have two options when your friends ask you to go out for happy hour. You could say, yes, screw it, and go out and get drunk or whatever, and maybe not be your best for your presentation tomorrow morning and potentially lose the promotion. Or you can be intentional and say, sorry, I actually can't go out tonight. I want to prep for this presentation. I want to get a full night of sleep. I want to wake up tomorrow morning refreshed. That's the difference between being intentional and not.
So if people who listen to the show regularly know that I love to mentor people, and I've mentored a bunch of people, but I have two people who my joke is they won't go away. So I have these two gentlemen who were both about 23 when I met them. I met them separately. They were both new to Austin. They were just starting their careers like a year out of college. One of them saw me speak, and he literally came up to me afterwards. And this was actually a year before I kind of became his mentor. He was still a college senior. He came up to me right after the speech and said, "You're the best speaker I've ever seen." And my answer was, well, you're young. You haven't seen that many speakers. But he ended up saying, "I'm moving to Austin. Can I buy you coffee?" He asked me for advice. And then he said, "Would you be my mentor?" Well, simultaneously, I met this guy in a coffee shop like a month later, and I helped him with a job interview, and he called me to tell me how it went. And then he said, "Would you be my mentor?" And I'm like, "What is this?" And so I said, "I don't even know what that means, but you're welcome to call me anytime." And two things ended up happening. One is because they were both new to town, same age, I introduced them to each other, and they became like best buddies, and their friend groups merged. And so they had this big pack of buddies that they ran around with. And it was funny that one of the guys had moved away. When he came back, they had a welcome back party, and there was a new girlfriend in the mix. And she said, "How do you all know each other?" And they go, "Oh, Nick and Jake have the same mentor." And apparently everybody was like, "What? What does that mean?" But the fact was, I told them, "You're always welcome to call me," and they've never stopped. So fast forward now 7 years, they're both 30 years old. They call me their fake dad. I think cool older brother would have been a much better nickname.
Yeah.
But if they were here on this call, and actually I am old enough to be their dad. I'm 22 years older than both of them, or 23 years older. If they were on this call, when you said what you said about what being intention-based means, I would have looked at them and just smiled, and they both would have said the same thing. I would call it having a target or a goal. And the reason I tell them they always want to have that intention, that goal, that target, is that it helps you make the tough decisions when you have to come to a cross in the roads. And the example would be, it could be any example, but the example of, do I go out drinking with my friends or do I prep for the thing? Well, the question is, does this bring me closer to my goal or farther from my goal? And the decision is always made for you when you're intentional about where you're trying to go. And I've been teaching them both that for 7 years, to the point that it's an inside joke. But the flip of that is, both of them are two of the most successful people in their peer group. They're making more money. They have, their shit together, etc. So I love what you say, because I believe in that.
Yeah, 100%. And for the people that are listening, I want to say too, it's more, being intention-based is more than simply having the goal. It's honoring that that's the goal and making those decisions. I always say every choice you make gets you closer to or further from where you want to go. So it's when those choices come is when you become intentional. Everyone can have a goal. Everyone does have a goal. Everyone has something that they would like to happen. Are they moving toward that? Maybe not. That's what it's about, taking those steps.
Yep, we're kindred spirits on that. I agree 100%. So have you had mentors along the way?
Honestly, no, not really. I watch what people are doing, though, a lot. And I picked up a lot in working for so many companies. Especially picked up on what not to do, because I had so many bad managers. Oh my God,
if I started a list of the bad managers I had. The good news is I can say that because none of them listened to my show, because they were such bad managers. They'd be like, "Who was that again?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, not really. Especially at the startup I worked at, I learned a lot. That was my first, I moved from an associate editor position to a director position. And so they were like, "We don't know anything about this. We fully trust you." So I was really running the show. And that's what I learned when it was like to make your own calls and how empowering that is. I find that I don't step into what I can really offer when I have someone sort of breathing down my neck. So that was huge.
So Jessica, I've got a few more questions for you. But first, I have to thank the sponsor of this episode.
Oh boy.
So this episode is brought to you by Podfly Productions. Podfly takes the time and the headache out of creating your own podcast. They set you up with the right equipment, training, and guidance to ensure that you're going to sound amazing. They do all the heavy lifting and that pesky technical work so that you can focus on creating great content, growing your audience, and interviewing really cool people like Jessica Thiefels. Hey, if you want to start a podcast, and I know that some of you do, jump over to podfly.net/cool things and check out the offer that they have for the listeners of this podcast. So Jessica, I call the podcast Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do. Yeah. What's the coolest thing you're doing in your business right now?
Starting a podcast, building a brand.
What's your podcast?
It's called Mindset Reset Radio.
Nice.
And it's about exactly like we've been talking about, living an intentional life, how to do that. I call my guests intention getters.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, people that are really moving with intention towards super cool and interesting things.
Nice. Has it launched yet?
No, I'm hoping to launch in about 3 weeks. I'm interviewing right now.
All right, so that'll be about the time, maybe this podcast will have just about be about the time it launched. So repeat the name and tell people where they can find it.
So it's Mindset Reset Radio, and it will definitely be on Apple and Spotify.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I love to ask the people who come on this show who they admire, because here's my thing. I think great entrepreneurs are observers, and you've already said that because you got all your mentorship just by working in places, good and bad. You observed what worked, you observed what didn't work. So I like to ask people, when you look out into the world of entrepreneurship, the let's call it the entrepreneur sphere, who do you say, wow, she or he, they're doing cool things?
I love Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. She has such a cool story. And
so I need to interrupt. All women love Sarah Blakely, even if they don't know her entrepreneurial story, because they just love her product. So everybody apparently loves her.
To be honest, I've never used her product.
That's because you're young.
Yeah.
Give it time.
Yeah, she's super cool, and she's like what I would like to do. Like she does very well in her business, and she does really cool things with the money she makes, and really helps a lot of people. And I would love to get to that level. Well,
and that brings up the next question, because she is really well known for the way she gives back. And the last question I ask everybody is, what do you do to give back to the greater good? Because I think being an entrepreneur, if you're fortunate, and all of us are fortunate, you got to find your way to serve. And it doesn't mean money. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's time, sometimes it's just good vibes. So what do you do to serve the greater good?
I can't help but teach. It's just in me. So on my, on Instagram and my community, I'm always teaching. I'm very practical. I'm a very practical person. So I do a lot of teaching. I've done a lot of just calls with friends to help them sort of get aligned in their life and move toward what they want. And I love doing that. So it doesn't feel like giving back, but I would say in a way it is.
All right. So let's take a moment and teach the listeners of cool things entrepreneurs do. Let's take 3 minutes. And let's say somebody's listening and they're intentional, they get it, but maybe their mindset is a little whacked. I think you're kind of an expert on that mindset piece. What would you teach them if you were sitting in the bar having that glass of wine and someone was just like, yeah, I have my intentions. I'm pretty good about making my decisions, but I got head trash. What would you teach them?
Head trash. I would say get quiet, because that head trash just moves around with the noise in your brain. The busier you keep yourself, the less likely you are to figure out what the heck is going on. So to get quiet, I would say sit down, maybe with a glass of wine, and grab a journal and just start writing. And not I hate journaling because it's sort of what do I even write? Just write words. Think about what you want to do, focus on that, and then start writing what comes up. Frustration, anxiety, anger, not good enough. And slowly you start to see a pattern as you just dig through layer and layer, just by writing questions. That would be my first suggestion. My second would be to work with someone. I do find when you can find the right, let's say, therapist or coach, because there is a lot under the surface that will keep popping up if you don't address it. So you've got to address it. And then the third one would be look at what you're trying to accomplish. Are you putting too much out there? Should you take a few steps back and focus on maybe the smaller pieces? Let's say an item on your to-do list is to reach out to 3 investors. Maybe that item should actually be research investors for my niche. Maybe that's the first thing you do, because that's a lot easier to tackle. So even when all that mind trash is going on, you can at least focus in for an hour on that one thing, rather than this grandiose idea of I need to get 3 investors by, April or whatever it is.
So how long does it take for somebody to do a mindset shift?
Depends on how willing you are to do the work. It'll take me my whole life, I think. But it's just pieces. For me, it was 8 months of traveling that helped me fully shift into this lighter, freer, more flowing place. And for some people that could take 3 months, 3 weeks, 5 years. Just depends. No one right answer for that one.
Well, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story, which is awesome, and also sharing your advice with the Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do crowd. If somebody's listening and they're like, Yeah, Jessica sounds cool. I need to know a little bit more about her. Want to listen to that new podcast. Or they're like, you didn't go deep enough on content marketing. I need to hire somebody. How do they find you?
Yeah, they can find me. Well, just search my name in Google. I'm the only Jessica Thiefels that exists in the world. So you will find all of my things. But my content marketing website is jessicathiefels.com. And on Instagram is where I share everything about podcasts, mindset, and Twitter is all about content marketing. So you can find me there too. And I love Twitter. So if you're a Twitter person, come tweet with me.
Well, we're new friends. I don't know if we're connected on Twitter and Instagram, but I'm there. So let's make sure we find that fast.
That sounds great.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to everybody who tuned in. I say it every single time. If it wasn't for the audience, why would we do this? I hope that you're picking up those nuggets, those ideas, those theories from these cool people who come on the show. I know I am. You know what? The world's been in a crazy place the last couple months. We need you to go out and flex your entrepreneurial muscles. Make sure that as you're climbing your own corporate ladder, whether you work for someone else or you work for if you work for someone else or you work for yourself, that your ladder's against the right wall. Because there's nothing worse than getting up near the top and going, "Uh-oh, I climbed the wrong wall." I know that firsthand because I did that for 20 years. Go out there, try some new things, and while you're at it, have a great day.
Thank you for being part of the Cool Things Entrepreneurs Do podcast. Without your participation and listening to these conversations, there is no show. Connect with Tom at tomsinger.com and follow him on Twitter at tomsinger.